Hey Alex, how's it
Hey,
going?
I'm good. Kayla, how are you doing today?
I I'm doing well, thank you. Before we get started, let me go ahead and introduce you. So, this is Alexandria. She is a woman's wellness advocate and educator with over 20 years of experience in mental health. She's the creative force behind the Mom, Wife, Worship Life brand and blog, dedicated to helping women thrive in motherhood, marriage, and mental wellness. So, welcome again, Alexandria.
Thank you so
Um,
much for having me.
yes, of course. And as always, the first question I always ask everyone is, what is your definition of balance?
That's a great question. My personal definition of balance is being able to have time to do the things that are necessary to take care of my
Hmm.
roles as a mom and a wife, while also having time and energy to do the things that I love to do, such as running my business,
Mm,
taking care of myself, spending time with my friends, and not feeling guilt in doing those things,
hmm
and in being still being present from my family and my
hmm
loved ones.
Yeah, that's so good. And the point that really stuck out to me was your mention of not just having the time, but also having the energy to do that because no one likes to go out with their girlfriends if they're also completely exhausted. It's not
Right.
fun. And that's
Exactly.
defeating the purpose of even going and hanging out with those people.
That is so true. Yes.
And so, what has been your experience? How has this come up for you in your own life?
So I've kind of gone from a place where I was surviving.
Mhm.
When I first had my oldest daughter, who's 7 now. Of
Okay.
course, as a new mom, you have no idea what to expect. You don't know,
Yeah.
what these responsibilities are going to look like. I was
Hmm.
working full time at the time as a teacher. So that was already a very demanding job. And so I was just barely making it, like crawling out of bed to go to work,
Mm.
coming home exhausted, not wanting to spend time with my husband, with my baby. And I just knew we needed to do something different. So we decided that I would leave my job as a teacher and stay home full time. And that was even, I would say, more difficult because I didn't know what that entailed at all, as well. So
Yeah.
it was a lot of loneliness. It was a lot
Hmm.
of isolation and me wanting to be around adults again and have those relationships and connections. So in all
Yeah.
of that, I got to a place where I started to find some things of interest for myself. And, I
Hmm.
started going to the yoga studio. I started, picking up some hobbies. I took some sewing class. So I
Mm.
just did some
Yeah.
things that I had always wanted to do that I wasn't able to do when I was working. And it led
Hmm.
me to the importance of taking care of myself and taking
Oh,
care
yeah.
of those desires that I have outside of being a mom and a wife.
Mm.
So I've gotten to a point now where I'm able to balance, the between the work I do from home, the time I spend with my children and my husband,
Hmm.
the time I spend in taking care of myself and doing those things that I love. And
Yeah.
I feel like I've gotten to a place where I'm no longer surviving, but I'm thriving.
That's amazing. That's awesome. And you mentioned that you didn't realize all that would need to happen once you became a mom.
Yes.
And no matter how many books you read, how many classes you attend, you just don't know what it's going to be like for you, what the temperament of your baby is going to be like
Yeah.
until it's actually happening. Because even if you are already a mom and you have a second or third child, the temperaments of babies are so
So
different, or
different.
they can be.
Yes. Yes, and with
Yes.
my first daughter, I took all the classes. I read all the books.
Mm,
I prepared as much as I thought any mom could
yeah.
prepare. and it was still not enough because, like you said, this child comes into the world and they're not like you, they're not,
Hmm.
they have this their own personality even as a newborn baby,
Oh, yeah.
and you have to learn how to incorporate that into your life and how
Hmm.
to help them to be the best person that they can be without trying to force
Yeah.
your ways and your ideas upon them and allow
Hmm.
them to be their own person. And I think that was the most difficult battle I faced in being a mom, was learning how to let my daughters be their own person and figure
Mm.
it out,
Yeah.
guide them to figuring it out as a parent, but
Hmm.
not force them to do things a certain way,
Yeah. What helped you with that? I know you have a child who's 7. My oldest is 8. So I'm in that place too.
Yes, and then I have a 2-year-old as well. So
Mm.
I don't know what helped me with that. I guess just reflecting on my own childhood. I think we
Yeah.
parent a lot the way that we were parented,
Hmm.
So reflecting on my own childhood and what my parents I feel did very well and what I felt could have used some improvement, and trying to improve
Mm.
in the way that I parent my children,
Yeah. And then trying to figure out how to, not just being a mom, but balancing also our role as a wife as well.
Exactly. And that's
Hmm.
a whole different ball game.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Because you want to, and all the advice is to keep your marriage first, put your marriage first, but in reality you have these little children who need you
Hmm.
and who are dependent upon you for so many things, and there are times when your marriage just you can't put your husband first because you have these little dependent children, who
Mm.
have
Yeah.
to be put first in certain scenarios, so we have really been working on that and trying to find balance in nurturing our relationship, our marital relationship,
Hmm.
while also, being present and parenting our children.
Yeah. And as I was going through some of your blog posts on your
Mhm,
website, there was quite a few stuff around that topic of marriage and being a
mhm.
mom, because it's completely different from marriage without children.
Yes, it is. For me, myself, we had our daughter very early on in our marriage because
Mm.
I call us late bloomers. We got married. I was 35 when we got married. So we wanted to
Mm.
quickly start, our
Okay.
family. And so we didn't have a whole lot of experience with being
Mm.
married and not having children. We had a more experience with dating and not having children,
Mm.
which is even, I think, more fun when you're able to date kind of carefree and not have the
Yeah.
responsibilities of a marriage. But I do
Hmm.
think it's important to, and what we always try to come back to is those things that we did when we were dating, those things that really, helped us
Hmm.
to connect and made us, things that we looked forward to. And it could be small things like me and
Yeah.
my husband used to like to watch a show. I forget the name of it. It doesn't come on anymore. But one of the
Okay.
talent shows, where we would watch
Okay.
and we would get together every week. And, I would either go to his apartment or he would come to my apartment and we would watch the show and talk about it afterwards. So, things like that, we always try to come back to. Remember when we used to do so
Mm.
and so? And, you think about those
Yeah.
feelings that you had. And I think those are important.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, I was creating actually a presentation around this topic of balancing marriage after having kids, and
Hmm.
how to continue basically having the romance there, or just keeping that relationship in a good place even after kids, because so for so many of us it kind of gets put on the back burner, because you're basically in survival mode when you have your first kid, or even when you just have a baby in general. You're trying to figure everything
Exactly.
out, and all of the small things that you did, because it's usually the small things, all of those small things that you did that you enjoy together, all of the pursuit, it's no longer happening because you're exhausted, you're tired, there's so much other things, quote unquote other things, right, that
Logistics, yes.
that need to get done, or you believe should be done before you get to enjoy your relationship or even yourself. And so one of the things that came up was it's actually those small things that matter, and the friendship that you have with your partner that can really help
Yeah,
bring back that relationship, or to continue the relationship if you feel, or if you'd like just had a baby and you're like,
yeah,
well, I don't want my marriage to slip, so what can we do? And it's really continuing that friendship piece and building upon that, continuing to get to know each other, always asking those questions, because
right.
we're not the same people we were before kids. Once baby enters, we become totally different people.
Yes, we do. And throughout the marriage, as we grow, we become different people.
Hmm.
We evolve, we learn new things, and sometimes our partner is not evolving with us in the same way, you know.
Yeah.
One thing that I tell people a lot, and I think it has been really important in my own marriage.
Mm,
We do marriage counseling every 2 weeks,
mm,
no matter if we're having issues or if everything is going good. We don't say, oh, we're doing fine this week, let's skip it.
hmm,
You know, we consistently go to marriage
mm,
counseling. We do it virtually, so it makes it really easy to,
yeah.
connect wherever we are. And that has been very important for us in being
Mm,
able to have those tough conversations. And sometimes I even find myself, if I'm feeling, upset about something or maybe a little resentful about something, I will hold off because I know marriage
mm,
counseling is coming up. And I know I have that mediator there who can help us have that difficult conversation and can help us get through that rough
mm,
patch if there's a rough patch. Or if we're in a good place, we can get our kudos and our attaboys, for doing
yeah.
great with the last 2 weeks. And it's really just been so good for us to help us maintain a cordial relationship, even
Yeah.
during the tough times. Because,
Hmm.
like you said, that friendship is important. It has to be the foundation. If that's not
Hmm.
there, it's difficult to even agree to do
Yeah.
something like this.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And that is having that time where you can come together, or this is going to be the time that I get to talk about these hard things. That's so important, whether or not you are doing this in therapy. If you're not going to therapy, even having this time that's set aside where like, I can bring up this tough stuff, because that happens too, where we want to talk about something and either we feel it's not the right time,
Mhm.
or we just forget about it, or we're pushing it down, and then it builds up resentment because we just never
Yes.
brought it up. And it could have just been maybe an easy conversation if it would have been brought up from the start, versus all of the resentment that's built up from that makes it a
Exactly.
much harder conversation to have. Yeah. So
Yes.
having specific times where you're talking about things and you're going to have a sit down conversation, and it doesn't mean that sit down conversation is all about the bad. It's
Right.
just, I know this is the time where we get to focus and talk about things that are going well, or things that we want to change, or tweak, is really important.
Yes. And it's been so vital for us in our relationship.
Mm, yeah. So going back to your experiences in being able to take these classes, I know a lot of women struggle with the guilt of allowing themselves to try these new things and to
Mhm.
experience new things. Or often that comes up with my clients is, well, I don't really know what I like. I don't know what I want to spend my time doing. And I often tell them it's going out there and trying these new
Trying new
experiences to see
things.
what you
Yeah.
do enjoy. Yeah. So what helped you to finally just get out there and start doing these things?
It was kind of, I had these ideas of things I've always wanted to do. I always wanted to learn how to sew. I've always had an interest in dance. So I remember taking like a ballroom dance class, or it wasn't ballroom, I don't
Mm.
know. Like it was, just silly things. And actually, along with my marriage counselor, I do also see a psychologist every 2 weeks as well.
Okay.
And she would
Mhm.
suggest things. There's a group that you can join online where they do meetups around town, and you can,
Yeah,
find,
okay.
just type in your different interest areas, and there's all these different meetups where you can go. So I started going to a meetup for it. It wasn't ballroom dancing.
Mm.
I forget what it was, but me and my, and I would, and she would say, "Oh, just drag somebody with you if you don't want to go by yourself." So I would get my
Yeah.
sister, and we would go to the dance classes. So it was just things that I was interested in, maybe prior to getting married
Mm.
or prior to having children. And I wanted to
Yeah.
explore those interests, more fully. So I think without having, my therapist, psychologist, what I call my collaborative care team, that kind of helps
Mm.
me figure things out that I probably wouldn't figure out on my own, to push me to do things outside of the little box that I like to stay in. I think
Yeah.
that really helps me to get outside of my own head a lot, because I am
Mm.
painfully introverted. Like,
Okay.
it's really painful, So me getting around a large group of people can be mentally draining. I mean, to where I have a
Mm.
headache when I'm done and I just want to lay
Okay.
down. And my husband is the complete opposite. He is very
Mm.
extroverted. He's very energized by being around people. And so, we have to kind of find a balance there where we can go out and enjoy things together, and it's not like painful for me. So
Yeah.
I think having that care team, and I do see a psychiatrist, a psychologist, the marriage counselor. I have a productivity coach. All these things kind of really work
Mm.
together to help me find that balance and maintain the balance that is necessary to have a joyful life, and to have a
Mm.
life that I can really love and enjoy.
Mm-hmm. How long did it take you to find the things that you did enjoy, and then how did you make time for those things?
So, like you mentioned in the introduction, I have been in the mental health space for over 20 years, and that
Mm.
is as a patient. So, that is my
Okay.
own personal experience in dealing with coping with a chronic mental illness and finding ways to live a full life in spite of having this illness that never goes
Mm.
away. So, in finding those things that I enjoy, it's been a process. It's been a very long learning process where I
Mm.
try some new things. I realize I don't like them and I don't do them anymore. So I have to try
Yeah.
something different. For example, I attended a conference for mompreneurs just last
Okay.
weekend. And I was
Mm.
really excited about going. But when I got there, I was so homesick. It was, I felt like I was gone for too long. My children missed me. I missed
Mhm.
them. And so I said, you know what? I can't travel for this long anymore. Like, I have to do short trips if I'm going to travel. And then I
Okay.
had a trip
Yeah.
planned the following weekend that I actually canceled because I just
Mm.
couldn't even fathom in my mind how I would leave my family again just the week after. So I realized that it's okay to pivot when we try new things, we don't like them, then it's okay to say, okay, what can I try differently next time so that it works better for me and so that it's not causing me so
Yeah.
much strife, but it's helping me to enhance my life instead of causing,
Mhm.
negativity and being more life draining than it is life giving.
Yeah. Yeah. And from what I found, the only way you can figure those things out is if you put yourself in those situations.
Exactly.
Yeah. You would have never known that maybe a week-long trip was too long versus, okay, maybe 4 days is the sweet spot.
Yes, I think 3 for me.
Yeah. And it's gonna vary for different people. Some people love those week-long things or want to go on these self-improvement or business
Yes,
improvement conferences and retreats. They can do it for longer, and there's no shame in that. It's just figuring out what is going to be the right time for you.
exactly. Exactly. And I encourage
Mm.
mothers a lot to not rely on so much, not rely so much on what we're reading, what we're
Mm,
seeing online, but to really figure out what works for us, what works for
yeah.
our family, what works for you personally, because everything that works for someone else is not necessarily going to work for me. And I have learned that through experience.
Hmm. Yeah. Was there something, I know you had mentioned like your struggles with mental health, but was there something that was a catalyst that made you recognize, okay, I do need to start doing more things for myself?
Um, After I had my first daughter, I began, let me back up. So I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I
Okay.
was about 21 years old.
Mm,
I was in denial for a very long time. At such a young age, you don't
mm,
really want to accept that you have this illness that's not going to go away. You have to be on medication for the rest of your life if that's the
mm-hmm,
route you choose. So it was very difficult for me to accept it in the beginning.
mm,
And once I did accept it and started receiving treatment, and then it was very hard to find treatment that worked, that didn't have so many
mm,
negative side effects. So
yeah.
that was in and of itself a whole different experience. So once I had my oldest daughter, I began to have what we call rapid cycles, where I was having manic episodes, major depressive episodes,
Okay.
like back to back to back. It was just
Yeah.
like one, I would be in the hospital
Mm-hmm.
maybe once a month. It was terrible.
Mm,
And so
yeah.
that was the catalyst in me trying to find a treatment plan and a medication
Mm,
regimen and a therapy regimen that would really help me
mm-hmm,
to maintain stability over longer periods of
mm,
time so that I could be
yeah.
present with my children. I mean, nobody
Mm-hmm,
wants to be in and out of the hospital and having other people taking care of your children when you're their main
yeah.
caregiver. I really just wanted to do it so that I can find that stability and hold on to it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah. Well, thank you so much for opening up for that. I know that's not always easy.
Oh, I don't mind talking about it at all. I
Hmm.
think it's a conversation that's very important to have, and a lot of people don't like to share because it
Mm,
depends on the person
yeah.
and how they feel about sharing their experiences. But I feel that the change comes in talking about it, talking through it,
Hmm.
and other people being able to relate and say, "Oh, wow, I've been
Yeah.
through that as well. Oh, wow. How did you cross that bridge? How did you get
Yeah.
past that point? And having those open conversations are what really helps people to get
Hmm.
to a state of, like I said, stability and thriving versus surviving.
Oh, yeah. And that was one of the major reasons why I even created this podcast in the first place, is because it makes it easier to hear other people's stories on a topic that, that you may be going through in this
Yes.
moment.
Yes.
I absolutely love podcasts, and I have a few that I regularly listen to
Mm-hmm.
that are more on like self-improvement or like entrepreneurship because, I'm a business owner too. So
Right.
I have these main ones that I go to, and I feel really connected to the hosts and some of the guests that they have, and it's really helped me. And so I wanted to create something that would help other moms that are looking to, improve their life in a better way and be able to show up as the mom that they want to be, as the woman that they want to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just so, like I told you earlier, it's just such an important conversation to have.
Hmm.
And like you said, through those conversations and feeling like you're connecting with the person, either the podcast host
Hmm.
or the podcast guest, and feeling like there's some, that you can resonate in some way with what they're saying. And then it may
Hmm.
catapult you to making the change you need to make in order to, like you said, become the best mom, the best wife, the best person that you can
Yeah.
be.
Hmm. And also recognizing that you get to choose what that is. There's no
Yes.
definition for the best mom ever, the best, this is like the
Right.
best wife, or you get to choose how much and how much effort you want to and how much effort you actually put in, because sometimes when we're striving for the best, when we say your best, it's still wrapped in that perfection,
Yes.
but it's almost hidden because we're not saying, how do I be the perfect wife or the perfect mom or, the perfect entrepreneur or employee.
Mhm.
But when we say our best, it's almost as if it's hidden in the perfection. Like, well, if I say my
Yeah.
best, I'm not working toward perfection. But in reality, it's almost still like we're working for perfection.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's perfectionism is something that I have struggled with for
Mm,
many years. And I think I'm finally getting to a place where I'm able to let a lot of things go. And that was very
yeah.
difficult for me because I just, like you said, thinking of your best and, thinking of,
Mm-hmm.
and especially in knowing that people have a perception of you based on what you've been able to produce or,
Yeah.
to show in the past. And if I'm not able
Mm-hmm.
to live up to that now, then it feels like I'm not as good as I used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even trying to, you think about women having children and trying to get back to their body before having children instead
Yeah.
of learning to accept, that my body has been through so much and my body has
Mm-hmm.
accomplished so much. And, this is the new me and let me embrace it. And of course, we
Yeah.
want to be the most healthy person that we can be, but we don't have to be we don't have to have that perfect body. It's almost really
Mm-hmm.
impossible to have the same body as
Yeah.
you had before, like for myself, two C-sections, and two
Mm-hmm.
children after 35, you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? So it's just being able to accept who we are in the present moment and not so much holding on to who we used to be or who we think we should be in order to be the best.
Yeah. Yeah. And how is it that you keep yourself in the present moment?
Again, it's taken a lot of work and
Mm,
a lot of guidance from my care team, a lot
mm,
of reminding, that I have a sticky note I'm looking at on my bulletin board here where I was having a complete meltdown one day with my
mm,
psychologist. And she said, listen, I want you to get a sheet of paper and write this down, write it down right now.
yeah.
And it says, I can have my own identity. I can contribute.
Mm,
I can continue with my passions. I can be creative and an entrepreneur. So these things that I have to be reminded of that,
mm-hmm.
I'm thinking every time I try to create, every time I get a new idea, every time I get excited about something, it
Yeah.
triggers, these symptoms of my mental illness and it causes
Mm,
me to have this reaction. And she's saying, no, you can do these things. We just have to, again, find a good balance. So having
mm,
those reminders and having that support, my husband is super supportive and kind of knows what I need to hear when I need to hear it. And also for me, I have a very close relationship with God and I rely
mm,
on that and I lean into that when I'm feeling like I'm not enough or I don't know what to do or I don't know what's coming next. I just have to kind of rest in everything is
mm,
going to work together for my good. And if I rest in that, I'm always just amazed at what God can do and what
mm,
he does do on my behalf when I kind of relinquish that control and
mm-hmm.
let him be God.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you share more insight on how spirituality influences your daily life and offers you balance?
Absolutely. Like I said, that my relationship with God is my foundation. So my spiritual foundation.
Mm,
And it's something that I'm able to always come back to. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm the most, disciplined person when it comes to reading my Bible daily. I do try to definitely um, maintain my relationship by doing those things,
Mm,
daily prayer and daily study. But it's difficult when we have all of these other responsibilities. But
mm-hmm.
one thing that I do definitely do is try to maintain an open conversation with God, where it's not just, I have to be in a place at a time and doing
Yeah.
prayer this way, but it's in a
Mm-hmm.
time when I'm maybe cleaning up the house and I'm singing a song that reminds me of God's grace. And I'm able to then say, thank you, God. Thank you for all you've done for me. Just keeping an attitude of gratitude and all those things. So it's an ongoing relationship that I try to maintain, so that not only am I able to talk to God, but I'm able to hear from God in those important times in my
Mm,
life when I have decisions to make and I don't know what to do. And, we
yeah.
can go to our friends or go to our family, but it's so important to have that connection, I think, for ourselves, and to be able to really recognize when God is working, and just seeing how amazing, it's just amazing to
Mm,
see how things work out, and I just love that. And I am so grateful for being able to be in tune to that and
mm,
know that God is very present and very willing to be there for us, when we
mm.
need it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you had said you often are having like this conversation with God
Mm-hmm.
often, like open communication.
Yes.
How does that enhance your life or help you to be able to relinquish that control? Because I know that that's a lot of what moms do struggle with, is feeling
Mm-hmm.
like they have to hold on to a lot of things, because if it's out of their control, then things are going to fall apart.
Yes, that's a great question. I would like to give you an example, a very recent example.
Sure.
As a new entrepreneur, I have been struggling to find my way and to
Mm,
find, I struggle with, am I doing this the right way? Is this
mhm,
did I take all of the right steps in the right order? And
mm,
every few months, I would say every 3 to 6 months, I get to a point and I just say, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. It's too hard. It's too time consuming. It's not working the way I thought it would work. And then I get a phone call, and I get someone who says the work that you're doing is amazing. You're on the right track.
mm,
We want to help you with this, or I would like to introduce you to this person, or, I would like to give you the opportunity to work with my organization in this way.
mm,
And it's just mind blowing, that right when I'm ready to throw in the towel, here comes these opportunities that I
mhm,
don't even know where they come from. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So it's just like that makes it possible for me to relinquish control, because it's a reminder and it comes at the
Mm,
perfect time. It comes right
yeah.
when I'm ready to give up. And then God says, oh no, I'm here. I'm still here, and I'm
Yeah.
still working. You just got to trust me.
Mm,
So it's those reminders, those things that help me to keep going and help me to understand that it's okay to relinquish control. That and it's even not just okay, it's better if I do, because if I do, it's more
yeah.
likely that the opportunities will come if I'm not trying to have my hand in everything and do everything that I believe is necessary, versus letting God do what he knows will get me where he wants me to be. And that's my prayer every day, is that I will be in God's will, that what I'm doing will not be for
Mm,
my own glory. It will not be for my own, fame or fortune, but it will be so that God will be glorified. And I think as long as I keep that focus, then I can trust that things will work out.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. I do find that it's easy to get caught up in, well, was this the right choice? Did I make the
Mhm.
right decision? Am I taking the right steps? And what I found is there's not wrong steps.
Right.
Whatever steps you're taking are the steps you were supposed to take because you
Exactly.
needed to learn a lesson there. So if
Exactly.
you took those steps, it's not wrong. They're all right steps for the most part.
Yes.
Maybe some
And
are a little bit more difficult than other paths, but we take the path that we're supposed to go on.
yes, absolutely. And the step on that path that feels like the wrong step, if we allow it and we relinquish that control, it will lead to the next thing that, and then you can look back and say, wow, that what I
Yeah.
thought was set up to bring me down actually lifted me up.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And when we see people that seem to be doing well or better in life,
Mhm.
they all had steps to take to get there for the
Yes.
most part, right? For the most part, there are always exceptions. There are some people who have just fallen into things. But those people who've fallen into things or they won the lottery or whatever, they didn't learn the lessons that you may or might have going the other path.
And
And
those
it's
lessons
those
are so
lessons that are important. If things are coming easy to us, it just means we're really not learning anything
yes,
new.
yes. And those lessons are also important because it helps us to not make the same mistake over and over again.
Hmm.
So that if we feel like what we didn't, bring us the result we wanted, then we know don't do that anymore, don't go
Yeah.
that route again. Let's try a different route. So yeah.
Hmm. And if you do find yourself falling into some similar patterns, it's time to get that checked out. Go see someone, a therapist or a coach, someone who's going to help you see where those blocks are that keep you stuck in that pattern because there's
Absolutely.
something there.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It can be painful to see people thriving, but
Yes.
if you're seeing people thriving, just means it's there for you too. You're on the right
Yes.
path. If you're
Yes.
surrounded by people who are thriving, you are also going to thrive soon as well.
Yes. And it's good to surround yourself with those people,
Yeah.
and to listen and be a part of
Hmm.
those conversations with those people so that you can learn what steps they took to get where you are trying to go.
Hmm. Yeah. Because the people you surround yourself with are the most influential people in your life.
Yes.
I know there's been studies on like the five, people you're closest to who you spend most of your time with. Those are the people who are influencing you. Those are the
Hmm.
people that you will act and behave as if those are the people you are mostly around. So it's important to surround ourselves by people who we look up to or who we can look up to.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's going to the like guarding your energy. Who are you,
Yes.
giving your energy to? Who are you spending your time with?
Your time. Yes. It's
Hmm.
just so important. Yes.
Yeah, because as moms, we have very limited energy.
Yes, and you don't want to waste it. You
Yeah.
definitely don't want to waste it on,
Yeah.
negative energy and being around negative people and people who are not, you know, helping you to be the best that you can be, or even
Hmm.
helping themselves to be the best that they can be so that you can be encouraged and inspired.
Yeah. Yeah. My husband will talk about how at work sometimes people will make fun of him because he's really into like health and fitness and
Mm-hmm.
he has goals he wants to reach in those areas and so he eats certain things um and it's usually like a lot of food. And so people will like make fun of his sandwich or whatever and he's like I have to ignore them because this is what I want. And
Yes.
they're not doing anything better, but here they are, pointing out the things that are different for them.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
I've had similar experiences with that where when I was teaching and, eating lunch in the
Mhm.
teacher's lounge, and I would make my little salads and, have my little protein, and everybody would be like, well, how do you eat the same thing every day? And how long does it take you to prep those salads? And I think a lot of times people just say things because they don't know what else to say. They feel like
Yeah.
I gotta put some kind of input in here. But like you said, when you have a goal and you know that what you're doing is working, and that they're not doing
Mhm.
anything that's working better, then you have to just keep pushing towards your goal.
Yeah. And we are getting low on times. I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit more about how you help and encourage women, and how, if someone felt connected and wanted to work with you, what are the steps that they can take?
Absolutely. So I am the founder of an organization called Mom, Wife, Worship Life, where we offer resources to empower, inspire,
Mhm.
encourage women to find balance and thrive in motherhood, marriage, and mental wellness. I can be found at my website, momwifeworshiplife.com, on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook at Mom Wife Worship Life. And you can go to momwifeworshiplife.com/work with me. And there are several resources there that will give you the
Mhm.
opportunity to connect with me if you would like to explore how we can work together to help you find that balance and to thrive in your life as well.
Awesome. And we will link all that up in the show notes. So if you miss something, don't worry. It will be available to you.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much, Alexandria, for your time and for your words of wisdom. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.